Kyrie Irving requests a trade from the Cavs. LeBron James was blindsided and is disappointed.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot more on ESPN.
That's peculiar.
Shared it with some of my teammates as well as the organization and everyone else in Boston. If you guys will have me back, I plan on re-signing here next year.
Boom!
So.
Man, I'm dead. Kyrie Irving!
A few moments later.
According to our Adrian Wojnarowski, Kevin Durant's manager, Rich Kleiman, has told him that Kevin Durant has requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
Ever since the 2016 finals, Kyrie Irving has been regarded as one of the premier talents in the NBA and one of the best point guards ever to grace an NBA court. Also during that time period, he's getting a pretty unfavorable rep among NBA fans, some players, as well as most of the media. Now, even with all that turmoil, Kyrie Irving is still highly regarded by some teams, specifically the LA Lakers. And at this point, Kyrie to LA, I would say, is 90% done. Maybe this week, next week, whenever, but it's gonna happen and Kyrie is gonna wear their purple and gold. Now, some NBA fans hearing that news, they would go absolutely nuts. But for me personally, I think Kyrie and the Lakers, it's not a net negative, but it doesn't move the needle at all for their championship hopes and their overall aspirations of being one of the top tier teams in the NBA. And one of the big reasons I believe this is because defense wins championships and offense sells tickets. And Kyrie primarily is an offensive showman, one of the most skilled players on that end. But for the Lakers, offense last year was not their problem. Their problem was stopping teams and keeping the scores under 130 points. As their defensive ranks last year, they were 21st in defensive rating and 28th in opponents' points per game. Compare that to the Lakers team 2 years ago that won the championship. That Lakers team had the third best defensive rating in the league. And really all championships of the 2010s decade and the past 10 years have been great defensive teams, with 9 out of the 10 having a top 10 defense and 6 out of the 10 having a top 5. Kyrie getting added to this team brings little or no defensive value, and in most cases he's a net negative when it comes to defense, as last year he was 185th in defensive plus minus and 265th in defensive win shares. And looking at LA's pickups this offseason, they've gotten Lonnie Walker, Troy Brown Jr., Juan Toscano Anderson, as well as Damon Jones. For the most part, no defensive stalwarts. And to put it quite simply, if this Lakers team doesn't improve in defense, they have little or no shot of winning the championship, let alone making the finals. Now, also one thing I do want to highlight is Kyrie Irving when it comes to the NBA playoffs post-2017. Most NBA fans think Kyrie is an elite playoff performer and one of the best playoff guys in the NBA. And actually be surprised, Kyrie actually gets worse when it comes to playoffs. In the past 5 postseasons, only averaging 21.9 points per game, 5.2 assists, 5.1 boards on 43, 35, and 93 splits. Among 20 point per game scorers during this time period, Kyrie ranks 27th in points per game, 27th in true shooting percentage, 28th in field goal percentage, and 21st in three-point percentage. Also, one very important side note, since 2017, Kyrie Irving has not averaged above 25 points per game in any playoff series. And once again, keep in mind, I'm only looking at one side of the ball, that being offense. As like I showed you when it comes to defense, Kyrie, at best, is average, and in most cases, a net negative. All I'm going to say about playoff Kyrie is that 2016 shot over Curry has gotten him a lot of mileage with a lot of NBA fans, as his playoff resume since that moment has netted very few, if any, positive results. Now, looking at reason number 3, this is an off-the-court issue. as Kyrie Irving obviously is added baggage and he's not reliable. And let's be real, the media, they love to hate superstar players as well as super teams. The only thing in the world they could possibly hate more is a Lakers super team. And Kyrie after this past year isn't exactly the most beloved guy when it comes to ESPN as well as the overall media. Even looking at LeBron James, any LeBron James team is going to garner massive attention. But with this Lakers team, they'd be on TV 24/7 and the most covered 7th seed in NBA history. And for someone like LeBron James, who's near the end of his career, does he need this headache in the NBA's biggest market? As adding on to the media baggage, Kyrie at this point is simply not reliable. Last year in Brooklyn playing 29 games, the year before that playing 54, and in 2020 only playing 20 games. Looking at those 3 years combined, he's played a total of 103 games, and the past 5 years has not once played 70 plus games. He's already playing with Anthony Davis, aka Mr. Glass, why add on Kyrie Irving, who's also injury prone as well as unreliable. As much hate as Russell Westbrook gets, last for the Lakers, you gotta give him credit, he played 78 games, the most on the team. For Kyrie, I can guarantee you, that is not happening if he goes to the Lakers. And speaking of Russell Westbrook, last year in LA was an absolute disaster, and the experiment failed miserably. But the one thing I will say, having continuity is very important for many championship teams. And if you add Kyrie to this roster, it's a whole new dynamic that the teammates, the players, have to learn on the fly all over again. In my personal view, I'd stay pat, roll with Westbrook, LeBron, AD, add some defensive pieces, and go from there. And the silver lining for this Lakers team, looking back to last year, LeBron James, he got injured 8 games into the year. Anthony Davis got injured 30 games in the season. And most importantly, when their big 3 all played, this Lakers team was above 500 and they would have made the playoffs. So why not roll with this team, hope they're healthy, and make the playoffs and make a decent seed, and possibly win one series, and just maybe make the conference finals. And let me make one thing very clear, Kyrie Irving is an individual basketball player and is an amazing talent. One of the all-time most skilled players and the best ball handler I've ever seen. But at this point in his career, does the headache outweigh his actual playing production on the court? For some teams it would be no, but for others it's a very hard yes. And at the core of this video, that is the main question regarding Kyrie Irving going to the Lakers. As once again, if he goes there, they're going to fail and they're not going to win a championship. Yes, they'll be exciting, they'll be fun, they'll get views and clicks, and be extremely popular. But if you want to win championships, you need defense, continuity, and a great, well-rounded roster. 3 things LA, with or without Kyrie Irving, simply do not have.